Chauncey, the cradle in the sky, the wild where the Franklin River roars? Or is it the little towns, the friendliest in the world, or the memories of the good old folks that bring you home? 'Cause you come back to Tassie, you come back. Don't deny it, you couldn't stay away.
Paradise, isn't it? Tassie isn't just the prettiest, greenest state of Australia. It's also home to some ruggedly individual and fascinating characters. And over the past 10 or 12 years, I've been lucky enough to film hundreds of Tasmanians, and we've chosen 10 for this collection. Some of them have already passed on since we filmed, so hopefully this film will become a memento of some uniquely Tasmanian characters. Now, to start off, I thought I'd bring you back to my hometown, Longford in the Northern Midlands. And as you know, every country town has a story to tell. And for Longford, it's of motor racing in a long ago past, the glory days of Longford. So let's go back to the long weekend of Longford.
Longford lies on the South Esk River, some 15 miles from Launceston, the northern capital of Tasmania. A typical small Tasmanian country centre in a typical setting. Nothing much has changed Longford since pioneering days. It has no suburban crowding, no peak hour traffic tangles, no great noisy marshalling yards or smoke-belching factories, but it does have what has become recognised as the fastest and best Grand Prix circuit in the South Pacific. And this is why they come to Longford. Grand Prix racing began over 50 years ago.
A quarter of a century has gone by now, but this old pub in our little town was once the centre of the universe. Well, for one glorious long weekend every March from 1953 until 68, the perennial murmur of the sheep was shattered by the fastest and most famous car races on earth. All the kid needed was one of these, a Jack Brabham badge for 5 shillings, and you had an entree to a fantastic world.
What time it was, and what a time it was, it was. A time of innocence, a time of confidences. Long ago.
World champions Hill, Surtees, Stewart, McLaren all raced around the country lanes that made up Longford's 4.5-mile road circuit. And of course, there was Brabham. We worshipped Brabham.
The centre of attraction in this race, and indeed the whole meeting, is Australian-born Jack Brabham, reigning world driving champion. Other entrants include...
For weeks beforehand and afterwards, every kid in our school in every running race became Jack Brabham. And as a quarter of Tasmania's entire population joined us to watch the races, we'd cheer for Brabham, perched behind the hay bales that we thought made us safe.
There's no catching Brabham now as he streaks down the final straight. All opposition has been left far behind.
This was Pub Corner, the part of the course which passed through the town, and as school kids, we'd gather here behind a few hay bales, wide-eyed and open-mouthed, usually cheering for Jack Brabham. We witnessed some incredible deeds unfold. Every year there seemed to be either a tragedy or a comedy. The most bizarre was when Lex Davison crashed his car into the wall of the pub. The car was a write-off and everyone here gasped. Then old Lex stepped out of the car, walked into the bar of the pub and scoffed down a beer. And today, as we look back through our amber-coloured glasses, we reminisce in the Lex Davison bar.
Here is Lex Davison, 4 times winner of the Australian Grand Prix, and his...
He was one of many of that era's champion racers who was later to die at the wheel. Great names performing spectacular deeds in a country town where it all seemed so unreal. I was 7 years old when, with 50 other school kids standing behind the hay bales on Pub Corner, we witnessed the crash that killed young American Tim Mayer. Mayer's Cooper Climax hit a roadside tree, hurling him 100 feet to land with a sickening thud outside the pub door. When we opened our eyes, his car's motor had landed just a few feet from us. But fortunately, the crashes weren't always so tragic.
Crashing into a tree. Miraculously, Burns is extricated from the wrecked Jaguar unharmed except for a slight scratch on his lower lip.
On a dusty corner, a Victorian Austin Lancer nearly comes to grief, but skillful driving pulls him out of a sticky situation.
The safety barriers and the roads were at best agricultural, and because the entire circuit was open roads, there was even a railway crossing. And a few hundred yards after the crossing, drivers ran the risk of confronting an emotional drinker outside Rocky's Tavern.
They had to hold the race up. They had to hold the race up while they calmed him down. But he was getting a bit
The culprit for whom they had to stop the race was the late Rocky Walker, Mick's brother. On race days, Rocky's ranch became an unofficial tavern.
As the cars had come at a hell of a pace, they'd all stand up and walk along the side of the road and watch them go by. They wasn't frightened of them as they thought.
Why not?
Well, a bit of Dutch courage, I suppose. The more they had, the closer they got. But in the finish, officials sent people down and they took control of them. But, my brother Rocky wasn't very pleased with that. He was going to stop the races one day, and they had to talk him out of it because they thought he might have got killed.
In those days, there were lots of risks and no one knew them, didn't they?
How the hell there wasn't serious accidents along these sort of roads, nobody will ever know.
But it was a time of innocence. A time when the local electrician was the club secretary, was the bloke who mowed the circuit edges, was the door knocker who talked 100 townspeople into becoming gatekeepers and flag wavers.
When you start looking through all the old books and things, you start thinking, right, gee, it was a lot of fun, isn't it? It brings back memory every time someone meets and says a good day to you who are working or just spectators. They reminisced on their point of view and what happened and why Longford disappeared and all these things, and it was a great time. It was a busy time.
Away go the 16 starters on the first of their 25 laps to take them...
Why it's now just a memory is because a little town of barely 2,000 couldn't survive in the billion-dollar industry of Grand Prix racing. This was the 1968 Australian Grand Prix won by Pierre's Courage, another to later die on a foreign battlefield. But the rain this day caused the crowds to stay away, and the financial flop sentenced Longford to a sudden death that was final. There's a twist to that tale of the Longford car racing, and we'll give you that later. Now, one of my favourite Tasmanian characters is a bloke who I can't get enough of, and there's plenty of him to give. David Foster was proclaimed Tasmanian of the Year in 1995 for all his charity work. But 2 years earlier, we caught up with him at the Royal Melbourne Show. And here's the story.
What actually we're doing here at the major shows is actually bringing back our heritage to the city people. This is what our ancestors done, when they first settled here in Australia. They used axe and crosscut saws.
Like the agricultural shows in which they survived, wood choppers belonged to earlier and simpler times, when transport was by horse and when sport was an extension of a man's work. And just as city folk regard their country cousins as quaint but not cool, so too does the sporting world see these men from Iron Bark in their singlets with their barber shop haircuts and ample bellies, and a friendliness that's been lost long ago to modern sport.
There's no other sport in the world that two world champions can stop together, drink beer the night before the world title. You can't see tennis players or, or motor car drivers doing it, but wood choppers do, they're great blokes.
While we're not chopping, we're bloody best of mates, There's not very much malice among all of the fellas here. They're all pretty good friends.
I think the common denominator is that we're country people and can't beat them.
Shelley Larkham represents one of the few changes in the sport said to be the oldest originated in Australia. She's in the Jack and Jill soaring. But almost to a man, the 200 or so at last week's Melbourne show were country blokes with values and rituals as old as the sport itself. They shake hands before and after every race. They yarn a bit and laugh a lot. and their king is a court jester whose only concession to sports science is to carbohydrate load at every meal.
We've looked at all these swimmers and stuff that's taken their hair off completely. Well, I won't have to go very much further before mine's gone.
Do you think it makes you chop better being streamlined?
Well, that doesn't get in your eyes when you're chopping.
Please welcome the current world champion on stand number 1 for Tasmania, David Foster.
David Foster dominates the chopping ring like the prize bull in the grand parade. He's potent, he's awesome, and he's overpowering, even to an opponent who's 15 stone.
I'm only about 2/3 his size, though.
Reckon he takes something?
Yeah, steak and chips, I think.
No steroids?
No, no steroids, I don't reckon. I camp with him. He drinks too much beer to be worried about steroids.
He's that explosive action that he's like a bit of a Ben Johnson.
Oh, you suggesting he might be taking something, Bill?
No, size-wise. Size-wise, explosive-wise. No, I don't think David needs any help. I think he can sort of nearly chop on bread and butter.
And lots of it. Foster devours world championships like hot dinners. This is his 137, having won them in New Zealand, Wales, America and Canada, where the lumberjacks would rather encounter a grizzly than a Foster.
Feel that going? Good.
Actually, there are a lot of grizzlies who'd rather encounter a grizzly than Foster.
A lot of it, I reckon it's probably fat, but a lot of it's flavoured muscle. Yeah. He's a lovely boy, isn't he? He's a top bloke, really. David's 6'4", I suppose, and you can guess his own weight because I can't.
He won't tell you?
Nah.
Like a lady, is he?
Yeah, very much so.
What weight, eh, Dave?
Heavy.
There you go.
148 kilograms.
What's that?
Fairly heavy.
The Fosters, like just about everyone in chopping, prove that woodcutting is a sport the whole family can play, especially Tasmanian families. They all hail from a family tree, second and third generations, like the O'Tooles from Victoria and the Yu dynasty from, yep, you guessed it, Tasmania.
My father was an axeman and I was only 10 when Dad was killed in the bush, but being the youngest, like the elder brothers were, the time I got to an age, they were established axemen and champion axemen. And
how many of your family then became world champions?
There was 5 brothers, all won world titles.
Bill Ute is world champ in the only form of chopping that David Foster shuns. You see, the grizzly can't climb trees. And Ute, as nimble as he is strong, has won the Melbourne Show's tree felling 19 of the past 20 years. Is it comfortable sitting on that thing there with the number 1 under you?
It's a beautiful feeling. It's the only one that I like, really. That's what strives me to be better, is that number 1 spot.
Would it take much to knock you off?
A few years yet. I'm not quite sure what it'll take to knock me off, but hopefully I can still be very competitive for another 20 or 30 years. You may laugh, you know, but like I'm only 21 now, so...
Larger than life, or should I say larger than life. A different sort of Tasmanian legend was Denny King, whom we found in the far southwest wilderness back in 1984.
It's only an hour's flight from Hobart, but when the Concorde soars gracefully into Melaleuca International Airport, you turn your watch back 40 years. Denny King belongs to the bygone days when men were men and everyone wore gumboots. No telephone, no TV and no toaster for Denny.
G'day.
G'day.
It's a bit damp out there.
Is it? I reckon it is. It doesn't look too good a day. Only different sometimes here in the winter and summer is the days are longer in the summer.
The weather is the biggest thing that happens in Melaleuca. And every morning since 1946, come rain, hail or more rain, Denny has compiled a report for the Hobart Weather Bureau.
Minimum 13, that's warmer than usual.
Yes, it is. Good morning, Danny. Okay, this morning, going ahead from Kingston.
Exodus to Hobart, good morning, 83209.
Often the morning weather call is Denny's only contact with other people. Yet at age 75 and after 40 years at Melaleuca, he won't even consider retiring to the comforts and security of life in Hobart.
No thanks. Company's all right, but I do like this life out here was quiet.
Doesn't it get lonely?
No, not really. Well, I'm usually pretty busy, and that stops you from getting too lonely. Of a night, you feel it a bit.
Other people, when they get to 75, they do things like go to afternoon tea parties and play bowls.
That'd be a bit boring, I think.
Watch a bit of television. Wouldn't you like to do that?
No, thanks. It'd be boring, I think. Bit tame.
Denny thinks nothing of swinging a pick and shovel like this for half a day and then sluicing through mud and gravel searching for tin. And if it rains, he's happy. More water makes the sluicing easier.
Not much in that.
Enough there for our dinner, do you reckon?
No, not enough to buy a canary first course for his breakfast. I'll have to dig another hole somewhere.
Once every year he still makes a journey which sailors half his age would call an epic. The 4-day trip on board his old sloop, the Melaleuca, is the only way to get his tin to Hobart or to pick up bulk supplies. He's an old hand at it. He's coming up for his 70th trip to Hobart. But the 200 kilometres around some of the roughest seas, through the most turbulent weather in the world, is an ordeal only to be tackled by the toughest of men. Denny King is such a man.
Denny King has since passed on, a legend of the southwest. Another who's chiselled his own path is Bert Farquhar. Now, Bert's been through good times and bad as a farmer, but he's never lost his self-belief in his methods, which sometimes are pretty radical. Now, this is how we found Bert back in early 1996 in Tassie's far northeast. If Bert Farquhar wasn't one of Australia's biggest and most ingenious farmers, you'd reckon he was an old hayseed with a few cattle short in the top paddock. Bert, are you a heifer or a bull?
I'm a bull, and that's the trouble. They're all steers, the heifers won't come. If they were heifers, they'd all come galloping, I think.
At first, the steers seem perplexed too, but just as Bert predicted, they eventually get curious and mosey on over to check out Farquhar the bull.
I hope you're not offering them something that we can't deliver.
Talking bull is just one talent Bert has mastered in 77 years on the land. His understanding of nature has helped take him from rabbit trapper to pastoralist, with a $10 million property which covers most of northeast Tasmania. And as you can see, Bert tramples on his staff, 10 billion of them. So how many do you think are down there, Bert?
Oh, I don't know. There's about 3 million a hectare here.
3 million?
Yes, but really it's a bit late in the season for them. Might be too many here at the moment, but they are living here all right. Oh, there they are, you see.
There's one,
yeah.
2. When Bert started using worms 30 years ago to improve his soils, neighbours shook their heads. Tests now show that worms have doubled production.
There's more live animals underneath that acre of ground and there is live animals above it. There's about 2,000 odd pound weight of live animals under an acre of ground, but you've only got about 1,000 pound above it.
There's more life under the earth than on.
Yes, that's right. If the earth, if it's healthy underneath there, the animals are healthy on top.
Your friends over there having a good time?
Yes, the old bulls are having a bit of a contest to see who's going to be the boss one with all these beautiful cows about.
Rushy Lagoon has 5,000 head of cattle and enough Spanish merino sheep to keep a gang of 28 shearers flat out for a month.
I'm sick and tired of waking up sick and tired.
3, 2, 1.
I'm trying to go for 50 this run, so I've got to shear one every 2.5 minutes. That's 6 every quarter hour. I've got to find 2 more somewhere else. So there's no mucking around. I've got to keep at them. Shearers get paid for what they do. If a bloke only shears 100, he only gets paid for 100. Bloke shears 200, he gets paid for 200. The one bloke can get twice as much money as the other bloke. All they're doing is a skill he has.
What's the sexy about it all?
Oh, the sheep, they enjoy shearing time, too right, because it's a new coat for them. And they're pleased to get their old jacket off.
But are sheep dumb?
They might be as intelligent as a dog or a horse, but still, I think all animals are really intelligent, if only we understood them, but we don't understand them enough, do we?
Rushy Lagoon uses horses to work the cattle because motorbikes made them agitated. And all around this 70,000 acre kingdom, there's a balance between livestock and nature, even the wombats.
Yes, no, look at the wombats going through there, right now. There's still
there's plenty out tonight.
Yes.
If you let nature help you with your farming, you improve a great lot. Which Bert does, he's a lover of nature and just lets nature work with him to help him farm.
Rushy Lagoon's farming methods are so visionary that this summer the curators of 7 American zoos have come to inspect the wildlife and the bird life of this coastal paradise. And Bert even sees a place for those notorious Tassie devils.
They're good scavengers, they clean up everything and keep things neat and tidy.
Do any damage to your live ones?
No, no damage at all to the live ones.
Bert Farquhar reckons that what he's done hasn't taken brains, just horse sense, and the pig-headedness to back beliefs that haven't always been popular.
Once upon a time, people that they were out on a limb, they thought they were greenies and hopeless and one thing or another if they did this, that and the other thing. But now I think they realise that the world's going to survive, that we have to look after our land and our animals and our trees and our plants and our insects and our spiders and our frogs and our snakes and our devils and everything else if we're going to look after it and keep it for the next generation or two, so as our families will have just as good a spin or better than we had. I just hope anything that I've been involved in, I've left better than when I started. If not, whether I made money or not, I wouldn't think I was very successful.
From Bert's you can wander south for maybe 2 to 3 hours drive and you come to another world. It's called the Fingal Valley and it's full of fascinating and resilient people. We were there maybe 7 or 8 years ago and met one of the valley's most loved characters.
Well, it's the same old house, the same old town, the same old pictures on the wall. And the Yankee Doodle had a cat, and he was fond of frolics. Every time he caught a rat, he caught him by his bollocks. I know a rude old person when you come to know me.
Coming to meet Dolly Bishop, you don't know quite what to expect. An Irish lullaby, maybe a bawdy ditty, or perhaps a tongue lashing.
Oh, you're only trying to ring them into me, you are. What I've heard of you.
You must have heard some bad things.
I have. God's truth, man. Make me bless myself. What do you think of my lovely little home?
She's very cosy.
When it's windy and when it's raining and it's rough night, you'd hear the palings falling off the house and tin and all sorts. And me in this little bedroom, I said to my daughter, I reckon the bloody old house will fall down before long.
Dolly's hut has everything that she wants. Enough clocks to fill a museum. One of them newfangled wireless sets. And lots of electrical gadgets that her daughters gave her. But she never uses any of them.
I don't like electricity. I'm scared stiff of the blasted thing.
It'd be easier with all modern appliances and...
I don't want your damn modern appliances, or whatever you like to call them. I want to have just what I want. As long as I've got a clean bed and I can have a cup of tea when I want it, and a fire. I iron with there's the old iron down there.
One daughter gave her a washing machine, but she keeps her wood in that. And cupboards? Never heard of them. Dolly's 4 daughters have tried tirelessly to move her into a modern unit. But they couldn't shift her with a bulldozer, because Dolly would never ever leave the last resting place of her old cobber.
Chummy. He was a faithful poor old dog too. He was lovely. I don't know what breed he was. He was just only got to stray. They brought him from town for me when I lost my other little dog. And
how long did you have him?
About 12 or 14 years. My God, he's like one of the family. In fact, he's better than some of your damn family.
Dolly's family is rather large, about 50, counting her 40 cats.
What's that? The meat?
Kangaroo.
They like a bit of roux, do they?
You're right, they do. Lovely.
Why have you got so many kittens?
Why have I? You want to ask the bloody old tomcat. I was a loner myself. I've been a loner. I've used to be when I was a kid. I was always up the bush and amongst the trees, and no boots on. That's the way you do it, boys. Now keep clear. Not a bad job of this. There, what do you think of that?
Music is the rhythm of Dolly's life. Her husband, she called him the boss, died 20 years ago. But in the valley, this is one Irish lass who's never lonely.
I used to say, Nana, what have you got 2 beds in your bedroom for? Well, I said, you don't know some old tramp might come along some night and want a night's lodgings? Awful for me, ain't it?
Has it happened yet?
Not yet, I'm open.
Open to offers.
Too right. I'll put a red light out. When it's lamp lighting time in the valley, and in dreams I'll go back to my home, where my mother and daddy are waiting. It will lead me wherever I roam.
In the valley and in many parts of Tassie, they still practice the very English pastime of fox hunting, which is peculiar really because there aren't any foxes. Still, it's tally-ho and off we go and all that stuff, because we're going fox hunting.
On behalf of the Hunt Club, I'd like to thank you very, very much for allowing us to use your property and I'd like to propose a toast to the landowner and to the hunt club. The landowner and the club. Here, back up, back up, back up. Come on, steady. Go. Now, that'll do, that'll do, that'll do. Here, test, test, test. Goldie. Come on, go.
The hunt attracts 60 to 100 riders every Sunday and causes the nearest thing Tassie's seen to a traffic jam.
Righto, boys and girls. Look for it, look for it, look for it. Steady, steady, steady. Hey, 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 hey. Hey! What the bloody... Hey!
Well, there are rare moments in the course of this beautiful and refined sport when the etiquette and the good manners are momentarily lost in the heat of the chase.
Bloody hounds all went straight to the cars.
Yeah,
bloody bastards. Why do they do things like that when you don't want them to?
Yeah.
And for a spectator fleet which rivals the Sydney to Hobart Armada, well, it's the nearest thing that Tassie comes to peak hour traffic when the rovers chase the horses who follow the hounds who sniff after the drag.
You move down here.
Mike, the crowd control isn't as easy as horse control.
If only the Westfield Run had this many onlookers.
Go left.
Come on, Goldie, good little girl. Steady, soft. Good, G. Down to your left a fair bit, Steve, or you'll get into a rough patch.
After the horsemen have bounded by, the tanks load up and the army of observers turn their reconnaissance to the next bunker. And even when one rider comes a gutser, well, out here, the victim remains frightfully eloquent.
There was a horse in front of me and it suddenly stopped and my horse sidestepped and I lost a stirrup and then I realised I was in front of the jump and I jumped over the jump with only one stirrup and fell straight off.
But the rider of this one wasn't quite so fortunate.
The boy that crashed up there, he's got a broken collarbone. But it's not to be. He was unconscious for a bit, but he's right now.
It's part of the game, I guess. It's part of like playing football. You can get out there and get your front teeth smashed in. It's the same sort of thing.
Mm. And I'd like to propose a toast to the landowners and to the hunt club. The owners and the club.
They've gathered again for another stirrup cup. And even the hounds are having a guzzle. Not much of a guzzle, mind you.
Come here,
They've had enough, have they, Alan?
Oh, if you give them too much, a bit like you're not going to have a 2 6 ounces and then run half a mile, are you?
It's that getting away from everything else. It's just that get out and sheer enjoyment of riding, of talking to people, having, you know, a good run. Yeah, enjoy life.
Do we all become English squires with our hounds for a couple of hours every Sunday?
I suspect that there is part of that in there. Yeah, I really do.
Now, I wouldn't be revealing one of this industry's trade secrets to you if I admitted that when we're filming this sort of event, we do sometimes hope for the odd spectacular spill. A harmless tumble, of course, but no less a tumble. Well, on this occasion, we captured no falls nor fouls. But for those cynics just waiting to see a little something that's not quite perfection, well, here it is. Unharmed, but definitely unmoved, horse and rider were stranded. And after what felt like an eternity, a well-placed push in the you-know-where hoisted the old mare back onto her feet. Don't you worry about a thing, old fella, they'll never find you. And it looks like they'll never find the Tasmanian tiger. Ever since the last tiger died in captivity in 1933, there have been thousands of reported sightings, as far away now as Gippsland in Victoria. Back in 1985, we followed a group of tiger hunters for a week and found them even more interesting than the animal himself. If the tiger still exists, and he hasn't been seen at close range for 48 years, there's a good chance he'll still be out there after Bob Green's morning cuppa.
Everybody has their own ideas as where the tigers are and how to find them. Personally, I've always felt that the best thing that could happen would be to leave them alone in peace, and they'll come back naturally, just like the devil has done.
Being Irish, I believe in fairies and leprechauns and all sorts of other things, so you may as well believe in something else that you may or may not be going to achieve. After all, if you find it too soon, you'll have nothing left to go out in the bush for, will you?
After 30 years of hunting the world's rarest marsupial, the thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger, Eric Geiler still hasn't caught the faintest glimpse of one. Nor has Bob Green. Now another hunter has joined the chase. With his helicopters and computers, Peter Wright has begun the most expensive search yet for Tasmania's answer to the Yowie, the Yeti or the Loch Ness Monster. Kangaroo's tail, tiger-striped back and dog's head. Not the sort of face you'd like to meet in the bush on a dark night, is he? But he's exactly what the tiger hunters are dreaming about. Eric Geiler's taken more wildlife films than Walt Disney. His 15 movie cameras in the bush are wired to automatically film whatever animals walk past.
We've photographed everything else in the bush that moves. We've got tiger cats, native cats, wombats, wallabies and galore, possums galore, devils galore. But we've never got the $64 animal at all, which is not right.
What do you think you need to hunt the tiger?
Oh, you need much the same equipment as anybody ever needed. A strong pair of shoulders, a strong pair of legs, and not much between the ears, I guess.
A helicopter's the only way to get in and out of that country. We're using the most sophisticated electronics that's ever been used.
Peter Wright's search area is a secret. He asked us to sign a form agreeing not to disclose the location, which was hardly necessary because even the animals must have trouble finding their way around the Central Plateau. It's so remote that it's even avoided being dammed by Tasmania's all-powerful Hydroelectric Commission.
Wombat.
Not tiger, is it?
No, maybe a large Bennett's wallaby.
Looks like there's plenty of them around.
Heaps. It's everywhere.
The merest footprint or feces could be the vital clue.
There's just so much evidence that if we went into court, we could prove it in court.
Well, Peter, how will you feel if you find the tiger?
Oh, elated. Absolutely elated, because it'll bring back something that's been so controversial for so long.
But my personal feeling is that I would just like to see one, and then within my heart I would know that it was there. At the present time, I only base it on a logical deduction.
And then you just let him wander back off into the bush?
Yes, I think that would be the ideal thing, to just see it and see it wander off and say, well, where there's one, there's more.
Bob Green's only evidence of the tiger is this picture of a faeces, a calling card a foot long. Undeterred, Bob searches on.
I think you want more evidence in the photograph, preferably bring one back alive, or if not, bring it back dead.
Jeff Wilson is another who started hunting with cameras and field glasses. Next time, he says he'll take a gun.
If they exist, if they have existed for the last 40 years, shooting one won't make one iota of difference.
Well, I think it's a pretty moronic attitude, to put it mildly. I feel that they're far better in the bush, given a chance to build up in numbers rather than be shot.
Well, do you think the tiger's still out there?
They're about all right. They've been reports over the years, some damn good ones that I find very difficult to disbelieve.
I still think there are tigers, but there are an awful lot of trees between tigers. That's the problem.
Where's that tiger? Where's that tiger? Here's that tiger. Where's that tiger? Here's that tiger. Where's that tiger? Here's that tiger. No, 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 no. Hold that tiger.
Well, they still can't find the tiger, but at least they did snag the Melbourne Cup. It was back in 1972, Ray Trinder's horse Piping Lane, when he stole the biggest race in the nation. It was an upset victory, but very popular in Tasmania because most of us backed him. Old Pipo and Ray Trinder, two grand old stayers. The Trinders are a family who live on horseback. Ray, his son Michael, and Michael's 10-year-old son Adam. Ray has spent a lifetime with horses. Michael is one of Tasmania's top trainers, and young Adam has inherited the family passion.
Oh, mate, good rider as time gone on, long as weight doesn't beat him.
Did you start off in a chaff bag?
No, draft horse.
Ray Trinder left school at 10, the same age as Adam is now. But Ray got his education on horseback.
I loved hunting and show jumping and that. And race riding too, for that matter. I love riding races, really. I won my last race at Longford. I was 67 when I retired.
For most people, that might mean the end of their involvement in racing. But for Ray Trinder, it was just the start. In early 1972, when he was 70, he watched Roy Higgins win the Hobart Cup on a local nag named Piping Lane.
And Roy said, I'll bring him over on the off-seed, and he said, you might pick up a country cup.
Ray's son Michael was even more damning when he learned his dad had bought Piping Lane for $6,000.
And he said, oh, Dad, he's not worth $6,000. I said, do you know what, Michael? I said, that's the cheapest horse ever sold in Tasmania. And he said, I only hope you're right.
And Higgins said, let's go, boy, on the champ Gunsend. He's gone up fast, and they're followed by Piping Lane as the crowd roared.
So inconspicuous was Ray Trinder that when Piping Lane ran in the 72 Melbourne Cup, the owner couldn't even get past the gatekeeper into the parading yard.
Piping Lane has moved up, got his head in front of Magnifique. Wide out Stormy Season Gunsend, but Piping Lane has won the money. A boil over, Piping Lane.
Being a small man, when everyone in the grandstand stood for the finish, Ray couldn't see a thing.
Some fella said, oh, he said, Piping Lane's won it. I said, I don't know, it's like that. And he said, did you back it? I said, no. I said, I own it. Yeah.
Football's football, mate, and, you know, I mean, it's always been, isn't it? Like, it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be King Island without a game of footy.
It's sad, it's very sad. I mean, it's sad for everybody, but it's just something you've got to accept. You know, there's nothing here for them anymore, and they have to work. And they have to leave, you know, that's just a part of it. There's not much you can do about it.
When Grassy's mine finally closed last December, it was last out, turns off the lights. The same lights that the miners once built for a revolutionary night competition, back when 1,000 blokes worked 6 days a week in the mine, and on the 7th, they played. When they left, Billy took one forward pocket, and Daisy the other, and football at grassroots level had died, with the club patron left to bury the remains. These are all your old photos in there, are they?
Yes, there's a lot of memories in those photos.
But whereabouts are all your pennants and trophies?
Well, the pennants, only a few weeks ago, when Grassy was more or less, you'd say, gone forever, didn't expect the team to come up again this year. I just took them down to the dump and said, well, what's the good of keeping these?
For King Island's kids, Grassy's demise would mean no footy to look forward to. Even with Grassy, there were just 3 teams, and they lined up against each other all year and then played off in the finals. As Mickey Mouse as that might seem, Saturday Arvo at the footy had kept the island's blood stirring since the turn of the century.
Why is it important, the footy?
Well, it's like bloody, it's like mating.
You said it's like what?
Mating, you know. It's like when the eels go to sea once a year. They all come down to the ground here and sort of, it's a social intercourse, you know what I mean?
When he isn't working on the kelp harvest, Big Ben Hassing works on his social intercourse at the footy.
You know, they only play football to settle all their arguments. It's a legitimate way of punching the piss out of one another, I think.
That's why they play?
Yeah, that's why they play. Yeah, old miners, see, they never die.
Play footy Saturday?
Who for?
Grassy.
I thought they folded.
No, not if you play. They haven't.
How many you got?
12, you'll be 13.
Oh, yeah, if you get a full team, I'll play.
Well,
one of those never-say-die miners is Mark Patterson. Though the club patron and just about everyone else had pronounced life extinct, Mark hadn't given up on Grassy fielding a team this season. Grassy born and raised, he's determined to keep this 80-year-old club alive, to keep on battling, to scratch up 18 blokes so the season can start Saturday.
Dingy. Dick. What? How you going? How are you? All right. What are you up to? What can I do for you? You can coffee, beer? Big favour. What? What is it? Play footy for us. For Grassy? Yeah, we're a bit short. How you doing, Gavin?
All right, Pat.
Gavin. What's the shot?
What's going on, fellas?
Bit of kelp? Well, we've come to ask a favour of you.
Fire away.
Righto. Footy.
Somehow, Mark's week-long recruiting mission has raised enough blokes to keep Grassy and the football alive.
10, 15, what? 5 more.
But they'll have to play all their games at Curry and in borrowed jumpers, because when the team looked like folding, the Guernseys left the island with the departing miners. While the last of the miners fly out, King Island's becoming more and more a haven for tourists and for its renowned cheese and cream. But there'll always be life and sport on King Island, while there are characters like Bodge Colgrave.
I'm the local umpire down here. I'm going down to umpire today, that's why I'm cleaning my boots. Local football game.
Bodge just has to stay on the island. It couldn't function without him. He's a cray fisherman, roo shooter, wood supplier, fire chief, Game Bird Association president, chimney sweep, yes, chimney sweep, and commentator for the races.
Hit the headlines and Denya Bay. Denya Bay takes the lead with 50 to go and Denya Bay wins the cup.
As well as all that, he's a full-time wharfie. With Bodge Colgrave, who needs waterfront reform? As Bodge Colgrave begins the season that no one thought would happen, Grassy, the borrowed team in their borrowed jumpers, give Ben Hassing's larger-than-life larynx something to shout about.
Come on here, Grassy, get your finger out. Come on, George. Give it to her.
Grassy, the unmentionable wearing the unfashionable, are all fired up for the unthinkable, the unimaginable, the unbelievable. Well, at this stage, the two sides are locked in an absorbing battle. When Grassy goes forward, Curry repels. And when Curry goes forward, well, they kick goals. And at this point, Grassy needs 16 goals quick to get back in the game.
One thing about it, Neil, they all finish up in the pub afterwards.
By the last quarter, the pub's a very attractive proposition. To the true believers, the party faithful, even those who came just for social intercourse, or whose hearts are across the sea. And as losing supporters are bound to mutter after football games across Australia, the scores aren't a true reflection of the contest, nor of the crowd, though Ben has a pretty fair summary of the game.
No Barts are barking for Curry, all barking for Grassy.
How do you think they're going?
Down the gurgle, I reckon.
That wraps up this collection of my favourite Tasmanian characters. I hope that if you're thinking about coming to Tassie, that the raw beauty you've seen might inspire you to come down and meet some of them. And if you do live here, then I hope you've recognised the greatness that lies over your back fence. Now, I did mention before that there was a twist to the tale about the Longford car racing. Well, here it is.
What a dream I had.
So we return to our pioneering origins, to a feed of mutton bird from a store where the shopkeeper still serves you, in a town where neon signs are, thankfully, few. And there's not much left of the old circuit. The roads are overgrown and both bridges have been pulled down. There's just an old pub and a few boozers who look out and see what used to be. Jack Brabham.
That is too.
It's Jack Brabham.
Up the street. Oh. Well, look at that. It's been a while, I reckon, since he's been around here, hasn't
He's come back to Longford. Jack Brabham. On the bar, this is Roscoe, an organ, Reg. Jack Brabham really has come back to Longford, to the pub where the locals still talk about how Jack and his mates would yarn about their day's racing.
After each event, of course, we always used to come into the hotel here and have a drink together and talk about all the things that we should have done in the race or didn't do in the race or what happened to us and all that sort of thing. It was a great meeting point here.
And just as we lament those lost days of innocence, he too recalls a Grand Prix like no other.
This was really the only circuit that had that sort of unique atmosphere of the country town. It certainly was a country town meeting. It certainly brings back a lot of old memories. Actually, we had some wonderful times down here. It was a race meeting that was a wonderful social gathering. You know, it was, we felt as if we're almost part of the public down here. Well, still got my signature on the bottom there, so it looks pretty authentic to me.
No oil leaks or nothing wrong with your nuts in those days, Sir Jack?
Yeah, that's right. Like I can still tick most of those off today. Now that'll give you some idea of the sort of racing we were doing in those days, with the cars flying through the air, going over the bumps. They were the exciting days as far as I was concerned. And also bringing out the overseas boys that I used to race with in England. They all enjoyed being here. They loved coming here each year.
Whereas the Formula One drivers today, it's not so much enjoyment as...
Well, that's a different atmosphere today. It's not like it used to be. And today, if you go to Adelaide, you're lucky if you see one of the racing drivers, apart from when he's in the car. They get out of the car and rush over and get in their caravan or whatever, and they don't mix with the general public like we used to here.
There's no catching Brabham now as he streaks down the final straight. All opposition has been left far behind, and another victory awaits the world champion.
Sir Jack won Longford twice, but his most spectacular drive was one race morning when he was held up by mechanical trouble at his Launceston garage. Instead of waiting for the trailer, Brabham drove his open wheeler for 12 miles along the public roads, amongst normal traffic going to the races, just to get to the grid on time.
5 miles an hour.
It's a pity, really, the circuit's not here right now, just as it was. But if it was here now, I'm sure I could go out there drive quite fastly round the circuit, and I'd remember every corner and every bump on the circuit.
You knew it that well?
Yes.
Well, if I really begged you, would you take me for a run round the circuit?
Well, I'd love to have a run round the circuit.
What a dream I had.
A generation ago, it was the Jack Brabham badge that got us into the dream world of fast cars and magical names. And though this motor is a new Honda and the old circuit's overgrown, Sir Jack is taking us on a fantasy for one last lap. Past Rocky's Tavern, around Tannery Corner, along the Flying Mile where he tops speeds of 170 miles an hour.
Down the Flying Mile close to top speed and is rewarded with the news that he's gained 2 more precious.
A quick detour to open the odd farm gate, then down under the viaduct past the Willows where the triple world champ often overtook the slower cars.
Winners of 3 world championships between them, both striving for that little bit extra to decide the issue.
Now Brabham takes his line for the run into Pub Corner. And for the last time, Jack Brabham rounds Pub Corner, where Lex Davison drank that beer, where the young American died, and where a country town stores its keepsakes of a remarkable time.
Preserve your memories, they're all that's left you.
The golden hills of Swansea, the cradle in the sky, the wild where the Franklin River roars. Or is it the little towns, the friendliest in the world, or the memories of the good old folks that bring you home? 'Cause you come back to Tassie, you come back. Don't deny it, you couldn't stay away. You come back to Tassie, you come back to your little home in Liffey, Yippee-yi. Yes, you always return to Tassie, if Tassie is where you're from. You sneak off like a tiger, but you come back. You sail around the world to see the other side, but all the traveling you've done to get away just brings you home. You come back to Tassie, you come back. Don't deny it, you couldn't stay away. You come back to Tassie, you come back to your little home in Liffey, Yippee-yi-yi. Hey.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus, I tell you what. Hang on, Neil. Pull up, pull up.
Special Tasmanian edition of Sunday edition.
I tell you what, the itinerary up ahead can be just as muddy and just as exciting as this. Have a look at that.
We'll see you again. As soon as we possibly can.
Take me to a dry cleaner. Jesus.